The world is recently discovering the thousands of crimes committed by priests and nuns around the world. In 2009, the Irish government recently published the Ryan Report, a 3,000-page document admitting the horrendous abuse inflicted upon thousands of children that lived in Catholic-run industrial schools. The Telegracia news team was prompted to travel to Ireland to conduct a first-hand investigation on the validity of this report by interviewing the survivors themselves. And we discovered that this shocking government-released report only includes a mere 10% of what really took place in these concentration camps. The Ryan Report is a calculated tactic implemented by the government and Vatican to silence the scandal. Be witness to the shocking words of John Kelly, a survivor representing the thousands of lives affected by the horrendous crimes committed by the government and the Vatican.
In the 60s, in early 1960s here, there was a lot of poverty. People were poor. My mother had 10 children. My father went abroad to England to look for work. So it's very hard for a single woman, well, a married woman on her own, to rear children. And she's in and out of hospital. So she needs somebody to mind her children. But, so I was in and out of home with my brothers, different homes with my children, different places. But then, my brother who stole some chocolate, and a friend of his stole some chocolate, just a few bars of chocolate, were brought to court, but because they gave me some chocolate 2 days later, it was on the flimsiest. The police would arrest you and bring you to court, and then sent straight to this child prison. That's why we were sent straight to child prison for sometime, in my case, for 2 years. For 2 years, because I accepted some chocolate from my brother and his friend, but it didn't matter. They would just look for the flimsiest of excuses. And the judges would agree. And the judges, in many cases, the judges would say, if the wife left the husband would go to the court and say, my wife doesn't love me. Oh, take the children into court, send them away. So the judges were controlled a lot by, that's how much power the church had. It could control judges. The government knew about it and did nothing. So the government tried to control what was the damage. That's all that happened. Tried to control the damage. So the government invited me and thousands of others to go to an inquiry. So what they did is they opened the wound, made an opening, opened a big wound of what happened to me. But the government never closed the wound. The wound is still open. Because without justice, the wound is still open. And you have to have justice. Let me make this simple. If somebody is raped or sexually assaulted today, or been kidnapped and locked and made to work as a slave, they would be prosecuted. They would be brought to a court. If the government cherishes me as a citizen, why don't I have the same thing? So it means my rights as a child was violated. My rights as a man, as an adult, is still been violated. Who would believe that they would abuse at a funeral? Who would believe that this priest isn't nice, he's powerful? You see, they look for weaknesses and they do it. We know here, also, just less than half a mile from here, a children's hospital. They abused people in a children's hospital. A priest, Mary Collins, was abused in the hospital.
How so?
Well, they went in. You see, because the priests, the hospital staff said, he's a nice priest. We can leave him alone with his child. So he's a priest, he wouldn't do anything. People wouldn't even think of it. And he was taking photographs of a naked child, pull the clothes back and taking photographs.
So would you say that they use the name of God in order to...
Yes, well, when I was abused, he used God. He said, when I was crying, because there was blood coming out of me, and I was crying and it was painful, and he said, hit me and said, he said, you are like a child, a little weepy child crying. You should think of Christ. Christ knows how to really suffer. What's happening to you is nothing. Look at Christ. This is what he said, what he's abusing. He said, I should think of Christ who suffered and the pain of Christ. For me, Christ suffered for me, so I should accept this pain because it's not as bad as Christ. Right. You see, they justify it. They can justify it while they do it. Another priest here in Dublin went to a park 4.5 miles from here, Ballyfermot. It was on television. I know the man, the young man. Brought him into the park at late at night and dark and put the holy things, the holy things, and abused the boy in a chunk of a tree while wearing the holy things. I mean, they use God to do it. They would use the church or anybody to do it. Now, I cannot understand how the Pope wants to keep that secret. The Pope has a duty to get rid of people like that. Not just rid of, but to go to the police, to be away from children. The Pope has a duty, but he doesn't do it.
So if he has covered up these abuses and has known of them for years, do you think, in your own opinion, do you think that he has abused children himself?
Well, he is implicated. I'll give you one example. Well, I was locked up in an institution. When I came out, another boy came out, 1967. The mother went to the police and reported this abuser. 1967. 5 years after Cardinal Ratzinger said, send all the secrets to Rome. That man, because the secrets went to Rome, that priest went on to abuse for another 20 odd years and hundreds more children, and then died in prison for abusing children. But if the Pope hadn't have sent that letter telling everyone to go to Rome and all the secrets go to Rome, that man would have been stopped. And the same as Brendan Smith, the priest here. He abused loads here, the Cardinal knew about it. He went on to America and abused loads of children afterwards. They moved them around. They think of the church. They don't want scandal, because scandal affects the church. So they would allow somebody who was evil and to little children to do that just to protect the church. But the church is not worth protecting. The church is no good. Yes, in Germany, we now know that Cardinal Ratzinger, as he was a bishop, he knew of a child being abused, but he now claims that a man called Gruber, who's he's a vicar general, he said that he dealt with it, not him. He said that it was a minor function and he didn't know, but he did have knowledge. And this man, Gruber, allowed the abuser to go free. And the Pope also, in America recently, we now discover that he knew of another man who had abused, but he wouldn't accept him to be not a priest. The priest wanted to resign. The priest admitted, I am guilty of abusing children. But the Pope wouldn't, as Cardinal Ratzinger, would not accept his resignation. In a reformatory school, they call it reformatory. Now reform, I wasn't reformed because I didn't get an education. Years later, I had to go to night school in London. When I was sentenced for 2 years there, but it could have been 1 week or 2 years, made no difference, because my life, they controlled my life. When I came out, I fled to England. I slept on benches in Hyde Park, in the rain, in the cold weather, but I felt safe. And I was happy. Happy on it, would you believe? Most children say, why would you be happy on a bench in the rain and the weather, snow, all that? Why would you be happy? Because people can't hurt me there. People can't control my mind there. I feel different. All right, I was treated as subhuman. I was beaten, I was sexually abused, but they can't do that. And then eventually, I try to get on with life, but it always stays in here. And the only reason in 11 years ago, only reason I do anything now is because my government promised me, my Prime Minister promised me, he would get justice. We got no justice.
If you've been a victim of clergy abuse, don't stay quiet. Speak out. Write to us at contact@vaticancrimes.us.